Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with Inside the U. The number 8 Miami Hurricanes win 39-38 at California to improve to 6-0 in the season, 2-0 in the ACC. The Hurricanes trailed 35-10 late in the third quarter, but overcame a 25-point deficit, which is their largest in a win since 1999. So certainly there's a lot to discuss, both positively and negatively, with this game going into a bye week. But first off, here's head coach Mario Cristobal after the game with his thoughts.
The best way to sum it up, it's the best example of resiliency and toughness and just no quit mentality that I've ever been fortunate enough to be a part of. The game was 35-10 at one point, and all that you saw was guys saying, "We're going to do this, because we can do it," and they did.
To be able to pull off a comeback like this, a lot of things have to go well, both offensively and defensively. A lot of players have to step up and make plays they typically weren't making earlier on in the game, which has kind of created the deficit that they did have. And to me, that's exactly what happened. I thought both sides of the ball. I thought the defense stepped up in the second half, as well as the offense led by Cam Ward. Looking at Cam's game, it was certainly a tale of two halves, and really the second half didn't even get off to a great start for him. His worst play of the season with the pick six. Miami goes down 28-10 as he rolls out to his right, throws a floater there over the middle of the field, and Cal gets the touchdown. It really takes the wind out of the sails after the defense comes out with a 3-and-out. So down 28-10. Look, it was a time at that point where it felt like maybe this just wasn't going to be Cam Ward's day. It was not going to be the Hurricanes' day. They were going to regroup after the bye, and it looked like a loss was coming, especially when it got to 35-10. It did not look good at all. And I think this team with Cam Ward, it's showing you that regardless of how it's going, it is, once again, I've said this before, it is absolutely going to take a lot for a team to beat this team with Cam Ward, as long as he is continuing to be out there. And I thought, if we take a look back at that first half, and I definitely want to get into how it ended with Cam Ward and how he played there, leading touchdowns in his last 4 drives to really get Miami ahead after going down 35-10. And look, they only had a touchdown and a field goal in their first 8 drives. Here's Cam Ward talking about getting back into the game there.
Just keep playing. Can't win. Can't come back from 25 trying to, get in one drive. So just take it play by play, have belief, and, you got the right guys on the team like we do. You can do some good stuff.
And to me, with the first half with Cam, we were seeing him play a lot different than what we had seen him play in the first 5 games of the year. He hadn't had series like this, maybe a play here or there, but he certainly was not, extending every single play and like he was in this one, and really missing his wide receivers. He was taking what the defense had given him and hitting long plays and really connecting with his receivers, which we were able to see him in a much better rhythm, much better control in the second half there as they're mounting that comeback. But the first half, Cam certainly could have played better, obviously, with the first half. But to me, I didn't like the game plan. I didn't like that Miami was going to this running game. Look, at 6 games into the season, Miami's biggest strength is their passing game. Regardless if it's offense or defense, what this team does the best is they pass the ball with Cam Ward. That's just the reality. And I think it is very important for the coaching staff to understand the team that you have as opposed to the team that you want to be. And I know that's very difficult, because I know this is difficult for this staff, because leading into the game, even Coach Dawson said he feels like we have a balanced team and they feel like they can rely on their running game. And we've not seen that yet. That is who they want to be, once again. But Mario Cristobal, ever since he arrived at Miami, has talked about being physical up front, and that includes a strong running game. And they brought in Damian Martinez. They have Mark Fletcher. They do like their backs individually. But the bottom line is these running backs are not getting production, that the level that they need for this team to rely on it much more than the passing game. And in the first half, I thought they got away from the passing game. I thought they let Cal off the hook in that regard. And that if Miami's going to run the ball, I felt like if you were to ask the coaching staff at Cal along the sideline in the middle of the game, are you okay with Miami doing this? And I bet they said absolutely. They would want Miami to grind out the clock, really take time off the clock and really force Miami to really get big plays in the running game, which has not happened a lot this year. And in this game against Cal, that did not happen. 25 carries by the running backs throughout the entire game. Only 3 of them went for more than 6 yards. The 28-yarder by Mark Fletcher, who also added an 11-yarder. Damian Martinez had an 11-yarder. So the backs were not able to get these big running plays going on. And I thought that took the rhythm out of Cam Ward in the first half. And also, when Cam did have the opportunity to throw the ball, he was playing a half that we had not seen him play at Miami yet this year. He was trying to extend every single play, whether guys were open or not. I thought he was missing wide receivers, just was completely out of rhythm, did not play well at all, and it really put the team in a deficit down 21-10. Only the 10 points going into halftime there. And it's because I thought the offense needed to play much better. And certainly the defense, giving up way too many big plays, and I'll get into the defense a little bit later. But with Cam Ward, his ability in game, and I've talked about throughout the season, we've seen him have bad plays or plays, in a turnover here or there or series here or there, but he quickly bounces back. And to be able to do that mid-game is one thing from drive to drive and just have a better drive. And that's what good players, that's what great players do. They immediately get over it and they get back to playing how they typically do. But for him to do this, to be able to essentially flip on a switch and really get back into his rhythm, really connect with his wide receivers. Again, going for 328 in the second half alone, finishes with 437 and 3 scores there, but the 1 rushing touchdown included in that. But he was doing a great job finding his receivers, whether it was 3rd or 4th down, whatever it might be, the big plays he was able to connect with. And again, for his ability to be able to play much better in the middle of a game says a lot about him, but also the team as well. They didn't let his bad play or the score really get to them. I thought the offense did a great job sticking with it, and they just kept coming in. And to me, that is the most difficult part with facing this team, is that it's just going to take a lot. I keep saying that. And certainly it was going to, for Cal, even though they built a big lead, it was going to take a lot to be able to knock off this team, because you keep giving them possessions, they're going to keep having opportunities. And based on whether it's law of averages or just being out there, they're going to make plays as long as they have all 5 of their weapons there from an offensive passing standpoint. With the 4 receivers in Arroyo, all the guys stepped up. And when they have all their guys in the passing game, they certainly are very difficult to guard and to contain. Now, defensively, it did not look good at all. The defensive line, not nearly enough pressure, not really enough force up front. And then in the back 7, and particularly the secondary, which has been a concern of mine all year long, regardless of how well they'll play in spurts. And I do want to give credit to the secondary in the games they play well. This was not one of those games. Giving up way too many big plays, looked like misassignments, not staying with their guys nearly well enough. And they allowed 4 plays in this game of 50 yards or more. It almost did them in. But the one thing about big plays for an offense is you can't always just count on a 50-yard play to be able to lead you to a victory, even though it certainly helps you get the quick points on the board. But as we saw with Cal there and Miami's defense really locking down there in that 4th quarter as Cal's final offensive drives, and the defense deserves a lot of credit. Again, secondary did not look good. I thought some misplays there. Even linebackers in the front 4 there as well, not playing nearly as well as they needed to. But in those final 3 drives, Cal was only able to get 8 yards on 5 plays on that first drive, 21 yards on 4 plays, and then the final drive of the game, 0 yards, the 4 plays. So defense certainly stepped up, guys stepped up and really understood the magnitude of this game. And I think that's what we're seeing with this team, a real sense of urgency. We saw it against Virginia Tech. USF, not nearly as close of a game as the last 2, but there were moments in the game where you've got to take control and get the win. And this team is doing a great job of that. And every coach would tell you they would much rather learn lessons in wins than losses. So Miami gets the results, and I think they are going to learn a lot about their team through the first 6 games. But in particular, these last 2, the 2 conference games. Going into this bye week, Miami has a lot of questions to answer, a lot of things to really that they can get into on both sides of the ball. Maybe we're going to see some changes. I think the coaching staff is really going to look at their team, because this season has an opportunity for them to really put together a unique season. They look like they have been the favorite to win the ACC since week 1. and to be able to get to that championship game, because to me, that's how I'm looking at this season. Can this team be one of the 2 teams that play in Charlotte there in December and get there? And then when you get there, we'll see how it looks at that point, depending on the matchup. We'll get into that. And I know people want to jump ahead, ACC title, postseason, and everything like that. But to me, it's all about getting to Charlotte. Can this team put together 6 more games, good enough games to be able to get in there, be one of the top 2 teams? So going into the bye week, there are a lot of things I think this team can look at and look to improve on to be able to be one of those teams in Charlotte. And the first thing I want to address is the offensive line, because to me, looking at that Cal game, I just felt like there were times that Cam Ward certainly got pressured. And there was also the perceived pressure as well, which is always a big thing for a quarterback, where I just didn't think the pass protection was good enough. And I think that's why he was always trying to extend plays just to try to escape the pocket, because guys were coming at him. And I think the one thing about when you have 6 games on tape now, teams and opponents are going to have a lot to look at in conference play now of what Miami does well and maybe some things that they're not doing well. And I think other opponents are going to continue to try to expose a little bit of Miami's weaknesses. And I think the pass protection needs to be better. So during the bye week, I think that this staff needs to take a real look, a real studious look at if this is the best 5-man offensive line group that they have from left to right, whether that is inserting someone else in there or if guys need to move around, whatever that might be. I think they've got to just be better on the offensive line. And I think I talked about pass protection, but also in the run game. One of the reasons why this team has not been able to be real strong, because to me right now, I think the run game is average at best. And the reason why it's not stronger, in addition to the running backs not being able to pick up enough yards when they are given opportunities, is I don't think there's enough holes provided by the offensive line. So the staff, I think, should really take a hard look at their best group there. And if moves need to be made, this is the time to do it. Not when things get, this is very difficult for a coaching staff, but it's very easy to make reactive coaching moves. But I think for a team like this that's competing for big stakes, I think being proactive before losses happen or before play gets really bad, I think that they've got to take a harder look. And I think this bye week is coming at a great time. Again, two games, 2 wins, 2 close wins in the ACC, but now moving forward, big games coming up. Louisville, Florida State got games that are big coming up here on the schedule. And again, to have one of these great seasons, I think they've got to make sure that they're really on point as much as possible, really, get better at the weaknesses that they've been showing. And then defensively, giving up those big plays was a really disappointing thing. And again, Cal goes for 38 points. I know the pick 6 is tacked into that, but they gave up over 30 points against Virginia Tech as well. And the defense has to be much better. They're not going to end up in Charlotte if they keep giving up over 30 points a game and giving up big plays like what we've seen in the first 2 conference games. It's going to be a very difficult way of operating throughout a season. And Lance Guidry's defense is capable of much more than that. And I think getting to its strengths, I talked about the offense and its passing attack. The defense really needs to play to its strengths with its defensive line. They've got to be a lot better and really impactful on much more drives, more consistency in the drives, that unlike what we've seen in these last 2 weeks. And I do think injuries are playing a factor in that. And to me, Ruben Bain, after missing 4 games, he does get in there against Cal, but having this bye week, hopefully he can get quickly back into form, whether it's immediately after the bye week against Louisville, but certainly down the stretch. They need Ruben Bain to be one of the best defensive players in the ACC, like he was expected to be this season. So we'll see what kind of impact Ruben can have, but also if they can get Elijah Alston back in there, missed last game with an injury. Akeem Mesidor is a guy that we've seen over his time at Miami play at a really high level, and Coach Guidry has mentioned he felt like at the midway point you're going to see Mesidor really pick it up, kind of shake off that rust. So hopefully Mesidor in there, and then you get the other guys as well. But the defensive line, look, for Miami's defense to cut down on those points allowed, the defensive line is going to have to be the ones that are really making the biggest impact. Because to me, I don't see this team getting much better play out of the secondary. To me, I think it's going to be a week-to-week thing. I think what you saw against Cal, giving up some plays, I think that's going to happen. I think it can happen in coverage, whether it's man or zone. I know they are playing a lot of man, whether it's at the cornerback spot or the safeties not making enough plays, whatever it might be. I just think the secondary is what it is. And for them to get the good play that you've seen at times throughout the year, I think is just a huge benefit. But I don't think it's something that you can lean on and count on week in and week out. And I think teams, as we get going here in the ACC play, I think teams are going to continue to try to attack Miami's secondary, which to me, and I've said this too, I think can be had. And I think we saw that against Cal. So defensive line, they're the ones that got to lead this defense. And Coach Guidry's got to figure out a way to be able to cut down on these points and really get guys in good positions. And I know it's a tricky task because you are having some guys just getting, outplayed, in one-on-one matchups. But again, going into this bye week, you can really reset and really take a look at what your team is doing well and then some ways to improve it. So they've just got to be able to, in general, limit their mistakes and kind of avoid their weaknesses from being exposed, play to their strengths as much as possible. Whatever that might be. And I've talked about their strengths offensively. I just think it's extremely imperative that this team really relies on its passing game and Cam Ward moving forward. This is their best recipe to success. It's what's going to give opponents a lot of trouble, a lot of difficulties in facing them in the final second half of the season. But definitely drop in the comments below. I'm sure you saw the game differently. There's a lot of things to talk about in a game like this that goes so well in a big portion of the game, but also goes so negatively as well. So when you talk about the game, I'm sure you can go with one side or the other, but again, it ends up 39-38 on Miami's side, 6-0. They keep it going, and once again, it's important to come back after the bye week and play much better in certain areas to be able to keep this thing going, because certainly getting to Charlotte, winning the ACC title is a huge goal for this team. And even at this point, regardless of how it's looked, 6 games, I still think that they're going to be able to do that. They do have the team to do that, and we'll see. But definitely drop in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, as always, and hopefully have a good rest of the day, and take care.